Start off by thanking everybody for being here and for helping us to keep this issue in the public eye and for supporting the Zahau family in their quest for justice for Rebecca. As you all know, back in July 13th, 2011, 32-year-old Rebecca Zahau was found naked, her ankles tied together, her hands tied behind her back, a gag in her mouth, and a rope around her neck. Various abrasions all over her body. After a short investigation, San Diego Sheriff William Gore determined that it was suicide. This was shocking to a lot of people. It was particularly shocking to the family who know Rebecca very, very well, know that she would not be the kind of person that would commit suicide. She was a fighter, she was a devout Christian, and this isn't something she would have done. The family decided not to stand for it and to push forward. Their only avenue at that point in time was in civil court. Because Sheriff Gore would not press criminal charges, in fact not even designate it as a homicide, the family had to do their own investigation. They brought in me, my firm, along with Fred Gaston, and we investigated the case, brought on experts, went to trial. At trial, most of the leaders of the sheriff's team that came to this conclusion that it was suicide went on the stand before a jury. You have to remember now, the jury, these are representatives of the citizens of San Diego County. That's what a juror's job is. We have the sheriff doing their job, we have the mayor doing their job. Well, sometimes it comes down to the citizens and they have to do their job and keep everybody in check. That's the avenue we went, and we got a San Diego jury. The jury looked at the evidence and came back very quickly with a verdict that Adam Shacknai had murdered Rebecca Zahau. Now, the evidence at trial was overwhelming, I believe. We had, you can tell it's an agreed to point, a strong point, when experts on both sides say the same thing. And both of the forensic pathologists on each side of the case said they had never seen a woman commit suicide naked. I found that kind of shocking and interesting fact, but both sides said that was incredibly unusual. The knot tying expert said that both sides said that the reproduction that the sheriff put together with the young Asian woman tying herself up were not the knots that were tied by Rebecca Zahau, so that reproduction was worthless. The most shocking evidence was that Rebecca was sexually assaulted. We note the knife here on the corner. This is Exhibit 27. You see the handle here. It was determined that the knife handle, and the sheriff's actually, the evidence gathering people confirmed that there was Rebecca's blood on the knife handle. What we found out through investigation was that blood was on all four sides of the handle, meaning all the way around, and in fact there was blood and tissue on the bottom of the handle. And the only source of blood at the crime scene was Rebecca's menstrual discharge. Thus, the only way for the blood to get on that knife was she was sexually assaulted with the knife. There was also a transfer of that blood as the knife rubbed against her inner thigh, leaving a streak of blood that was exactly the width of the knife. Evidence further showed that the crime scene had been wiped down. There was no DNA, no fingerprints on any doorknobs, very little on the doorknobs, nothing measurable, no DNA. The paint tube that was used to paint the phrase, "She saved him, can you save her?" which is a vinyl plastic which holds fingerprints and DNA very well, was shiny clean. The paintbrush that was used, which has the handle, which is the chrome, you can see fingerprints with the naked eye when I touch it, was shiny clean. It was clear that the evidence showed that the crime scene had been wiped down, had been staged to look like something else. The bizarre fingerprints that were found on the knife, this is one of the knives that was found, a replica of one of the knives that was found at the scene. There was no DNA, no fingerprints on the handle of the knife where you would expect to see it. The fingerprints were on the blade in a bizarre manner, where the fingers line up like this in a weird position with the sharp part of the blade facing towards. It made no sense why that happened until all of a sudden we put our hands behind our back and put the fingerprints on, and all of a sudden it makes sense that that's what was used. Rebecca was actually using this knife to try and cut herself free while she was bound and gagged and still alive. Another fingerprint was unusual on the knife was that there was a right thumbprint on the right side of the knife. What's unusual about that is you can't cut anything with your thumb on that side. Your thumb has to be on the other side of the knife in order to cut if you're cutting in front of you. But if you're cutting in back of you, your thumb is going to be on the right side of the knife. The evidence laid out, the jury felt overwhelmed with a very, very quick verdict that it was a murder and that Adam Shacknai did it. The judge afterwards, Adam Shacknai's attorneys, asked the judge to reverse the verdict and to issue a verdict of her own in favor of Adam Shacknai. The court, the judge, Judge McCall, wrote an opinion that was very scathing and very unusual because she could have just said no, you know, the verdict is upheld, would have been fine, but she went further than that. And she called out Sheriff Gore, saying, "The court feels remiss if it does not state that the sheriff's investigation leaves almost as many questions unanswered as answered, and as a result, it is not unreasonable to still ask who killed Rebecca Zahau." When a local judge calls out a local sheriff, something's wrong. Something is really wrong, it needs to be fixed. We gave the sheriff another chance. He said he was going to look at this again. This happened right before his election. I think he gave lip service to it before the election, said he wouldn't come back with his decision until after the election. His opponent, Dave Myers, stated openly that if he was elected, he would reopen the investigation. Sheriff Gore, politically savvy gentleman, squashed that issue leading to the election, and then afterwards, some 8 months later, came up on December 7th with his decision that he still believes it is a suicide. The family's not giving up at this point in time, and they're going back to the citizens to get the information they need in order to get this compelled to be a criminal investigation. The family has filed a grievance with the Sheriff's Department. That is still pending. That has to be concluded before the family can seek legal recourse against the sheriff in civil court. We are also going to be petitioning the coroner, the medical examiner, to change the death certificate from homicide. It's corruption. There is something corrupt in the sheriff's system. It may be the sheriff himself. I think he has good people. I think that some of them eventually, hopefully, will come forward. I know that Dave Myers has stated that he was a captain in the Sheriff's Department before he ran for sheriff, that a large percentage of the people in the Sheriff's Department think this is wrong, what's happening here. We need to stay on top of this. We can't let this happen. We can't have people be murdered in our community and then for whatever reason, and we may not ever find out the reason. You know, people speculate that, oh, you got this very rich gentleman in Jonah Shacknai and his brother's charged and now he's getting a walk. We have no connection of that now. That piece is a missing piece. People see it and you say, you know, that's something like that must have happened. We don't have any evidence of that. We don't know what's causing the corruption exactly. What we do know is that anybody looking at this evidence would say it's murder. We have a sheriff who says not only that it could be murder, that it could be suicide, he's convinced it is suicide. And in saying that, he's either lying or delusional, one of the two things. This family's not going to let go, this firm's not going to let go, and we thank you guys for being here to help keep this alive. We have one of the big release today is the family has decided to put up $100,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of Adam Shacknai. We're noting that he has been found civilly by a civil juror to be the one who murdered Rebecca Zahau. That is not a criminal conviction. That doesn't put him in jail. That is just a monetary judgment that was in excess of $5 million issued by the jury. We need this to go further. We need everybody's help. People out there in the community, we know that there were people outside of the Spreckles mansion that evening, late in the evening on July 12th of 2011, that heard the screams going on. They may have seen something too. They may have a better idea of exactly where the screams were coming from to confirm that they were Rebecca's even further. There'll be people who've seen Adam Shacknai in the community, not knowing, think there was a strange reaction of some type or heard something that now, you know, putting together the face and the name, they can say, okay, I saw that guy, he said this, we need to hear about that. People who know him, who see him acting differently, who see behaviors that would implicate him in some way, we need to know those things. It's now time to step up and get the evidence out here so that we can compel this sheriff as quickly as possible to reopen the investigation and prosecute Adam Shacknai. We're going to have some question and answer afterwards. We have a copy of the reward poster here for everybody. We also have a release, we had Dr. Rovner, a renowned polygraph examiner and expert, review the polygraph that was performed by the Sheriff's Department. It was his opinion, and I have copies of that for everybody here, that depending upon how you read the test, first of all, he said the test was poorly done, and he's very critical of how the test was done. But he says even taking that information that was gained in the test, reading it one way, Adam Shacknai glaringly failed the test and was a liar. Reading it the other way, most leniently, it is in that undetermined area, but far towards the side of showing that it was a lie. For those of you not familiar with polygraphs, one moment. For those of you not familiar with polygraphs, the way it works is your body's all wired up, and there are sophisticated scientific devices to detect your biological reactions, biophysical reactions. We have those, we can't control them. When we lie, whatever we do, we have a reaction in our body. The person being examined has asked two types of questions. One's the control question, one's the relevant question. The control questions, you'll see here, the types of questions are, did you ever do anything sexually that you were ashamed of? Did you ever do anything that hurt your family? Did you ever lie to your family? Things like that. Those will evoke some reaction in you. One, did you do this? And then two, because everybody has done to a certain extent, do you lie about it? Or do you tell the truth? Either way, it's an uncomfortable circumstance because you're sharing publicly something which is very personal and embarrassing, or you're lying about something. So there's the control. Then you ask the examined person, were you involved with the crime? Did you have something to do with this? And they have a reaction. When people are telling the truth, the reaction to the real question is lower. I just got through the thing. Did I ever do anything sexually that embarrassed me? No. A little bit of lie, a little bit of uncomfort. Did you cause harm to Rebecca Zahau? No. Less reaction, less frequency. If there's situations where the reactions to the real questions are higher than the reactions to the control questions, that's when you have a polygraph failure. In every instance, in every question that was asked to Adam Shacknai, you look at the report and see this, his reactions to the real questions were higher than the reactions to the control questions. So this leads the examiner to say, hey, this is probably a lie. Dr. Rovner here concluded that to be conclusive, they should have done one more test. In fact, that was requested by the real examiner here, Mr. Redden, who did the original test. The sheriff didn't do it. And so it's just one more piece of evidence we're looking at that shows, hey, the evidence really does show that Adam Shacknai did this, and it really does show that the sheriff's investigation of it was substandard. Have a copy of that for you guys too. We also have a copy of Judge McCall's tentative ruling that I just referenced, and it's at the bottom of page 1, and the bottom of the last page is where the quotes are that I read. So we will have questions and answers in a little bit. Mary, once you step over here, and I'd like to give Mary just a moment to chat with you folks while she flew in out of town just for this.
I just want to thank everybody, the media and everybody in San Diego for supporting us. I apologize. It's still very hard for us, so it's as if it's just happened yesterday still. But I want to stand here in front of everybody today to represent my sister, Rebecca Zahau. And I wish all of you would have known her. She was an incredible person. And she sure knows how to make somebody smile. And she was a fighter. And I know she fought the night she died. And she left plenty of clues and plenty of evidence that were ignored. And I refused to stand down, and my family refused to stand down. She would have done the same thing for me. I have to fight for the injustice that was done to her. And if Sheriff Gore and the law enforcement agency, whoever's involved, think that we are gonna go away, that is not going to happen. I will fight this as long as I live, and as long as I'm capable of doing it. We cannot let the injustice of my sister just be brushed away, just be hidden because of whatever political agenda or who you knew or who did it. I want to appeal and ask everybody to call the sheriff's department and get on them. And, you know, as a citizen, you guys have a lot more influence than you think you do. So we beg all of you to call them and not just stand by.
Can I add to that?
Yes.
A lot of times in life you see something bad happen. You make a decision, am I going to get involved or not? You know, if there's a pothole in the road, you presume somebody's going to fix it, you don't worry about it. If somebody else left litter on the ground, maybe you pick it up, maybe you don't. This is a time when something bad has happened here right in front. This is the type of thing that happens in other countries, other cities, not San Diego. And it's really time for us as citizens to step up and call out the people that have been elected to do the right thing. And it does make a difference. Your phone calls make a difference, your letters make a difference. We can't let this sit and fester. It needs to be dealt with now, and any help that anybody out there can give, just even a phone call, an email, anything to get this thing moving and be a part of solving the problem would be appreciated very, very much by the family. Questions? Do you have something else you want to say?
No, I just want to, like I said, let everybody know that Rebecca was beautiful and she was a wonderful person and she was a fighter, and I just want to let everybody know that she was a victim, and I want the sheriff's department and law enforcement to treat her like a victim and get justice for her.
Good. Questions?
Why do you think that no one that presumably would have heard the screams or any other unusual noises coming from Spreckles' backyard, why do you think they haven't come forward yet? Just wasn't a big enough reward, or what?
I don't think that, we need to know the area for one thing. You've been to the ocean. You can be standing on the other side of the street and you can't hear somebody talking right over there with that the soft noise, the wind blowing, etc. Also, the screams came from the upper deck, the room where she was bound and gagged. If you look at the layout of the houses, and I apologize, I didn't bring that photo with me, it's almost like an amphitheater pointing towards the neighbor that actually heard it. And so we're talking, what, 11:30 at night, we're talking, and the neighbor that did hear it also said there was a lot of noise on the beach that night, with people talking, laughter, etc. It's the summertime in Coronado, and so a lot of background noise. These houses are large. It's not surprising that we have just the one neighbor that heard it. I'm glad we have the one neighbor that heard it, and she was very convincing. I mean, when we talked to her initially, you know, she said she stopped, she turned down her TV, leaned towards the window to see if it was going to happen again, you know, and it didn't, and she sat back down and turned her TV back on and got back on, you know, with her life, and it didn't become relevant until the next day when she found out the police were out there, you know, asking questions, and something bad had happened. So, not surprising that there weren't other people. I think there were the people that did hear it because they got quiet also. The neighbor who said she heard the scream said the people out front of the house got quiet also when that scream happened. And it was quiet for a little bit, and then they started talking again. She sat down and everything there. That's this part of the reward here, and we identify those people right in the text of the reward poster here, is that the people that were standing out front, we're still looking for them. Now, this is 8 years ago. They might have been teenagers. We got to get this out across the country. I'm surprised at how many people don't know about this case. We need to get it out there as big as we can so those people come forward as if somebody else did hear. We know somebody else was there, heard it, and reacted to it, and they haven't come forward yet.
Keith, that number is it's a significant number. What does the size of that amount say Where, can you talk about where the money came from? Was it raised, or is this from?
Okay, well, I guess the cat might be out of the bag already with this, because Adam Shacknai, I can't say this, but Adam Shacknai has said on TV, on all of your channels, that his insurance company settled for $600,000. And so, you know, the family has said that they turned down $1 million offer before the case went to trial. It wasn't ever money. They need him to be convicted of the crime he committed. That money came after the verdict, after everything was done. They got their verdict. That's what we needed. We got the word out in the public. That's what we needed. That money was accepted. That money is now being used to get additional experts, investigators, attorneys, and a reward. I think the family would probably pay more than that if it came to it, to get the information that put this culprit in prison. But that's we wanted to make a statement that was significant, that would catch people's interest, and get somebody to come forward, get them thinking about this.
When you talk about corruption in the sheriff's department, is there concern that, hey, where are tips coming into? That would be coming in from the public.
You mean tips coming here versus tips from the sheriff?
Yeah, like if you're a citizen that has information, you want to call somebody to let them know, hey, I got some information relevant to the case. Are they calling the sheriff's department? Is that a concern?
That's interesting. I guess that should be our next press release. People, if they have called the sheriff, maybe it went nowhere. Maybe there is information there. Call us. Call us. We have the website on here. We have the toll-free number on here. If you've previously given any information to the sheriff, please let us know. That's a great question. Thank you.
Keith, can you talk about the context of that lie detector test? How much soon after the discovery of Rebecca was that conducted? Was he being questioned at that time?
Yeah, it was. I apologize. It was relatively soon after, and
same day.
it might have been.
Yes, it was the
same day. Yeah, it was the same day. You're right, because in the pre-interview, they're talking about what happened earlier today and what he'd been through and his concerns about how nervous he would be. Yeah, so that was right in the beginning of the investigation.
And no other lie detectors.
Yeah, and that's even and then after the test was done, when Mr. Redden suggested that another test be done as a follow-up, the sheriff didn't follow through with it.
And you mean not the same day he called 911, not the same?
Yes,
Yeah.
Same day of the 911 call.
The polygraph expert you guys used, did you call one or a handful? And is there something lost reviewing the polygraph tests through a videotape than being there in person?
Well, actually, no, because we have the graphs. You know, he has the actual graphs that were made of the device, and they use the same machines for the most part. Some distinctions, but generally the same technology. And so having the graphs, having the video, watching it, we don't think we lost anything in transit. Although when you read the report, how the polygraph was performed itself was really shoddy. It sounds like, and it makes sense that another one should have been done, and it was asked for, but sheriff decided not to.
Can you talk about the timeline for your petition for the medical? I mean, what has to come first, the grievance, or you can?
We have several paths. We have several paths. One is the grievance that's been filed with the sheriff. We had to do that within 6 months of December 7th, because that's when he made the decision. It's going to remain suicide. Once the sheriff decides what they're going to do, if they say they're not going to do anything, which is most likely, we then have the option to go to civil court. And we are considering, we'll have to react and see how they end it. We're looking at a number of avenues in civil court to go after the sheriff's department themselves. We also have a parallel path with the medical examiner. Under California law, the medical examiner who made the certificate, the death certificate, and said it was suicide, can change that on their own with a one-page verification. We're working on a petition to Dr. Lucas, who was the certifying doctor. He's now in Los Angeles. We're hopeful that for two reasons. One, he's no longer in San Diego under the pressure of any political pressure that there would be in San Diego. And two, we're really going to give him an out here, because reading his report, and I took his deposition, a lot of information he didn't get. He wasn't told that Adam had loosened up the bindings on her wrists, and that appears in Adam's oral, in the taping of his interview, but it doesn't show up in any of the reports, the written reports that wind up going to the coroner. We have the sexual assault aspect, which was not brought to the attention of Dr. Lucas. We have now 2 experts saying that the manner in which she tied herself, which the sheriff did the reenactment of, is incorrect. Dr. Lucas didn't have that. And we've got 2 more now, one nationally renowned, Cyril Wecken, nationally renowned forensic pathologist, and then another reasonably respected forensic pathologist saying that women don't commit suicide in the nude. And so, and a number of other things, going through all the evidence, the things that I shared with all of you today and going over the knives and the scene being wiped down, that wasn't brought to Dr. Lucas's attention. So we're hopeful that now that he doesn't have political pressure from San Diego, and now he sees all this additional information, he will do the right thing, and he can then change it from suicide to homicide, or even undetermined, and that would then put us in a situation where that investigation would need to be reopened.
Oh, so if he changes it, it's not the current medical examiner's office in San Diego, he would change it?
I think
How does
that's
that work?
Plan B.
Lucas himself?
Lucas himself, as the certifying doctor under California law, can change it.
And then that would automatically reopen potentially?
Well,
the case, or-
well, you have a sheriff now who has a closed investigation on a death that is either undetermined or a homicide. I think that'd be a little more difficult.
Then you can take his potential new finding and do what with it?
Use it in our action against the sheriff, to compel the sheriff to do the right thing.
To reopen it.
Yeah.
And Keith, going back to the polygraph, your expert, Dr. Rovner, concluded that there should have been a 3rd chart, a 3rd test, in very, very simple terms, because this is kind of complicated. Can you explain why the expert felt there should have been a 3rd test?
Yeah. Because when you have, because in each instance, when Adam Shacknai answered the question that involved Rebecca's death, he had a high physiological response, higher than the test questions of, have you ever done anything embarrassing sexually, have you ever lied, etc. Because of those tendencies and those trends, you go to a 3rd test, a 3rd set of questions to compare against all 3. And if you have consistently every single situation where the physiological response is higher on the real question, on the relevant question, as opposed to the control question, it makes it a more conclusive final conclusion. They won't stop at 2. You need to have 3, according to their standards, their industry standards, to make that conclusion. And Mr. Redden here just cut it short and couldn't get to that point. By design, the test given by Dr. Redden by design had to fail, it was worthless.
Whose decision was it to cut the test short, or did it stop it there?
Well, Mr. Redden did ask for another test to be done, and that request was never made. He requested suggested the sheriff do that. The sheriff never followed through.
He couldn't have just done the 3rd one after he was done with the 2nd one?
I guess he could have. Why he didn't, that's a criticism of Dr. Rovner. He should have. He made a mistake by not doing a 3rd. That mistake could have been caught by Sheriff Gore when a request was made for another exam. Sheriff Gore denied. Or at least didn't follow through. It's getting warm in here.
You good?
Anybody else?
When you said you're filing a grievance with the sheriff, do you mean a complaint for damages?
No, it's just a grievance. It's an administrative grievance. Yeah. Before you file a lawsuit against any type of city government agency, within 6 months after the event, you have to file a grievance with them to give them a chance to fix it. And if they fix it, then you don't have a lawsuit. If they don't, then the law says, okay, if the sheriff didn't fix it on their own, we can then seek redress in civil court.
So what's the timeline for that grievance?
As soon as they get it done. It's been filed, it was filed
We filed
in June?
Memorial Weekend.
Memorial Weekend?
We filed Memorial Weekend, and I would also like everybody to know that Sheriff Gore has yet to call the family or contact the family. Every time there has been contact, it's the family's effort to contact them where we have been kind of brushed off. I know for a fact that he has had phone conversations with the other side, the Shacknais, in multiple occasions, but he has yet to contact the victim's family. So when we filed this, we were hoping that we would actually hear something, and this is now 2 months after, and we still have not heard anything from them.
Good. We'll hang around a little bit. Cameras, anything else? All right. Cut.
Thank you.
All right. We have a radio interview shortly. Any more questions, anybody? off camera?
Yeah, Keith, just
Yeah.
explain the timeline again, so file Memorial Day weekend and then when.
You know, I think they have, if they don't get done in 6 months, I think we can go on our own. They have 6 months then to look at it.
So
I
6
presume-
months from Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, I presume we're not gonna hear anything till November.
Okay, and then at that point, you can file potentially